All right. All right, once again, good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking a little time out of your day today to join us here for this panel. It's something that our Next Steps group at the chapel, we've been really excited about this to try and get another one of these panels up and running. I've heard that before I got here, there was a Vision 2020 initiative, and there was a student panel involved with that, and that it all went very well. And hopefully, with this today, our goal is to have some students to maybe put some names to faces that you might see around here all the time, grow a little camaraderie between some of our students and members, and hear from the students themselves what they think about our ministry, how it has been a blessing to them. So that's about all the talking I'll do for right now. I'll put it to the guests of honor. But so as we go through this, I have a batch of questions cooked up for them to kind of get the ball rolling, but if at any point anyone has a question they'd like to ask to one of them or to the group as a whole, just feel free to raise your hand. We'd love to hear what you'd like to ask them. So I'll just start here. I'll pass the microphone off. If you would just introduce yourself, your name, your hometown, where you're currently at in your schooling, so like class or graduated, and what your major is or what you're doing right now.
Well, my name's Hannah Noss. I'm from Manitowoc, Wisconsin. I'm the odd duck up here. I graduated in December, so I just got done, but I graduated in a degree in personal finance, financial planning. I'm now working half-time as an associate advisor at a firm and also working at a free tax filing site for UW Credit Union.
Hi, my name is Lusayo Mwakatika, and if you can hear the name, if you can't pronounce the name, it's fine to ask me all over again and when we meet outside. But I'm from Malawi, which is a country in the southern part of Africa, and my home city is Lilongwe. I'm doing agricultural business management at UW-Madison, and I'm a sophomore, and I'm also a house fellow here.
Hello, my name's Danielle Voss. I'm a senior at Madison, graduating in May. I'm from Appleton, Wisconsin. I'm studying food science, and I'm looking for grad school in next fall.
I'm Lucas Adrian. I'm from Green Bay, Wisconsin. I am a freshman this year, just getting started on the civil engineering and construction management track.
All right, thank you for. We have Lusayo, Danielle, Lusayo, and Hannah. So the first question that we'd like to pose to our panelists is something maybe you've heard around here before the chapel. You maybe heard some students allude to this. Many students refer to the chapel as their home away from home. How has this been true for you? Just give you a couple seconds to think through something. And I'll just repeat the question one more time. Many students refer to the chapel as their home away from home. How has this been true for you?
I don't think I'm maybe the right person to answer, but because the chapel is literally like my home right now, because I live here. But it's been a nice environment for me. Like apart from when I like, especially traveling from like a long way to here, like at the chapel is the first place that I knew at UW-Madison, because I got fortunate that before I came in the summer, I was able to meet Phil. He came to Malawi when I was about to come here. So this was like the first place whereby I found some familiar faces, because I didn't know anyone when I was coming here. And he introduced me to people, and just people are just welcoming and stuff. So like I've always felt like this is a familiar place for me. So it has definitely felt like home away from home. And now that I live here, it's like my second home, I guess. Yeah.
So my first year of college, I went to Martin Luther College, and then when I was looking at where I wanted to transfer to, the biggest thing for me was that there was going to be like a good Christian ministry that I could kind of use, because I had been spoiled at MLC with having evening chapels and morning chapels and just a continuous like Christian base. So chapel kind of became that like refuge in that way. Madison was the only school I applied to when transferring simply because of the chapel. And I think that the coolest thing about it is that for all the students, it is their home. A couple weeks ago when there was the cold day, we canceled Vespers because it was really cold. And we still had a bunch of students that showed up at like 9 o'clock and was like, okay, so we're all singing, right? And we all just like did an hour worship together, like unprompted by anyone, just a bunch of people that were all here, and was like, it's like Wednesday, this is what we do, this is what our home is. So we all came, brewed coffee and sang. And so it's just kind of been a cool way in that way of just, it's like the home base. It's where people feel the most comfortable on campus.
So last year, about this time when I was a house fellow, I got pretty sick actually, and I wasn't really able to do a whole lot, just lay in bed, but that wasn't a fun time. But what it made me realize is just how much people care for you at the chapel. Like I had people asking if they I needed groceries or drive home, or just people were always constantly checking in on me. And it just made me feel really loved and that people actually cared for me. As a freshman, that was the hardest part, going away from home where you don't have those adults in your life who are who care for you. So just knowing that chapel is a family and that people want you to do well and that they're constantly thinking about you, that's the home part for me.
On a lighter note, I love the food. On Sundays and on Mondays. Living in the dorm, you just get cafeteria food and it's not so glamorous, but coming here on Mondays nights and getting home cooked food as a guy means a lot to me, so.
That's a good answer. All right, thank you for that. If there are any questions at any point, just raise your hand. If it's for one of them, it's for all of them, just let me know. Otherwise, we'll go to jump right to that.
Speaking of food, I was feeding my face. Speaking of food, I was feeding my face, but how did you all find out about the chapel before you got here?
When I started looking around at schools, I also just started Googling, Wells churches in the area. So when I looked at Madison, I saw that the chapel was right here. And as I started talking with people who were more familiar with Madison than I was, because I actually never came down to Madison to even visit until I toured my junior year, they said, oh yeah, the chapel's down there. The chapel's great. It's like the best Wells campus ministry there is, so you've got to be sure to check that out. So once I told people I'm looking at Madison, I had tons and tons of people telling me, check out the chapel, check out the chapel, check out the chapel.
When I was looking for colleges, I actually never really considered whether or not there was a chapel nearby or a Wells church. I figured I could just watch stuff online. That wasn't a priority. But then I decided on Madison purely based on academics, and definitely like a high school teacher encouraged me to come, and my parents and my church, so just word of mouth.
Yeah, and I think for me it was after I had like two options when I was applying here. I got into like Michigan State and like UW-Madison, and these were like conflicting because they were like the same weather and similar place and stuff. But my dad, he works with like missionaries back home, like Wells missionaries. So he was always like, you can choose whatever, but like I would be happy if you choose like Madison. And like I kind of knew that he was like directing me towards that way, but he was happy that there was this chapel that was dedicated to students, and it definitely like make deliberate plans and programs that would cater for students. So it definitely affected my decision. And when I met Phil back home also, that kind of just like cemented my my views, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to go like to UW-Madison, and the first thing I look forward to is like the chapel and stuff. So.
When I was really little, I went to the Overture for a musical, and my older sister's friend was a house fellow here, and so we visited that time when I was like in grade school, and so I like always kind of knew about it in the back of my head. And then a lot of my friends, I worked at a summer camp, and a lot of my friends were also house fellows or were deeply involved in chapel, and so I kind of always knew about it from them.
A lot of cool perspectives from different, finding out about us here in different ways. So moving right along, another question, more towards the heart of what we do here at the chapel. How has the chapel helped you grow in your faith? A few seconds to stew on that one. How has the chapel helped you grow in your faith?
I would say one of the biggest ways that chapel's helped me grow in my faith is just the conversations that can be had among the students. We have the really cool opportunity of everyone kind of studies different things and everyone brings their own perspective from the classroom. And we can have conversations about different topics in like Christian living or just different topics and conversations. I can think of specifically a triple dollar dinner once where it was me, personal finance, so nothing with science, a biology major, a wildlife ecology major, and a couple other like random majors, and we were all talking about evolution, and everyone had their own perspective from what they'd studied, but we all like have the same common faith, and so we can have those conversations in an open way and explore different like viewpoints that we've heard about. And so for me, it's been really helpful in just having those conversations.
Yeah, I think for me, it's growing up in like a Christian household, like something like church, you take it for granted because like you go every Sunday, and I lived in a Bible school campus, so we had like church 2 minutes away, and yeah, like I saw it as like a call that like you could go with your parents and stuff, but when I was able to come here and I was alone, like away from my parents and stuff, and I lived in the like university dorms, you realize that there are not so many Christians around you, and like most of the things happening around you are maybe mostly against the Christian beliefs, and so having the chapel was kind of like a great escape from that kind of like environment, because I got to meet people who believe the same like me, and people who I know can relate to my situation and have the same perspective mostly on things that I see. And so just having that community around and talking about issues that I wouldn't otherwise talk with other people around the campus, like about my faith and like maybe my struggles in my Christian faith, I feel like it has really strengthened me to take like Christianity as like a personal thing rather than just like a routine thing that like people do every Sunday and stuff. Yeah.
I would say for me, the biggest thing is just this Bible studies, especially like the student Bible studies, when you can get together with your friends and actually like start to talk about, well, the bigger questions, maybe like the things that people ask you on campus, but also understanding what you actually believe. And it's great to talk with your fellow students and communicate with that. So.
Yeah, I have a lot of the same thoughts that they shared. I'll share a new one, though, is the daily devotions that fellow college students write. It's nice getting a perspective from somebody who's my age going through similar things versus, a bunch of guys at Wellston at headquarters writing, a bunch of pastors writing. Not saying that that's a bad thing, but it's good to have a different type of perspective, and that's something that I can really, really appreciate. I also appreciate that it is so close to campus, so I don't have an excuse to not go. It's not my parents, making sure I'm up and ready to go on Sunday mornings. It's me making sure I'm up and ready to go, whether it's Sundays or Mondays or Wednesdays, whatever it is. So the convenience factor really helps and makes it an easy decision to come here.
Those old guys who preach at the chapel, right? Getting there. No. No, but that's very true what you say. Thank you very much. Michelle Luckman.
Hi, I'm Michelle. What is a way that older people like me who aren't in college anymore can support college students? Because obviously we're all here, we're members at the chapel because we support the students and the campus ministry, so we want to know, how can we support you?
Great question, and that'll kind of segue to another one I had on here. Same type of sentiment. What can we, the members of the chapel, do to best serve you during your time in Madison? maybe a tie into that, then we can do a 2-for-1 right now then. Do you have any specific ideas for events, projects, etc., that you think would help us, the chapel, in our mission to know Christ and make him known on campus? So what can we do to best serve you during your time in Madison, or like any ideas? Oh, you're jumping at the bit.
Not so much of a project, but when I'm here on especially on Sunday mornings when the full congregation is here, at my congregation at home, I come from a congregation of about 200, 300 people, so I know pretty much everybody at my congregation. I know them on a first name or last name basis, and I can talk with just about any of them. I'd love to get to know all of you, not just the college students, so if you see me here, come up, introduce yourself to me. It might take me 3 or 4 Sundays to get your name right. I'm not great at names, but I want to get to know the people here, not just the college students, just so that I can have that more familial and close feel with everybody here, not just the students.
I think firstly I can answer like the her question. She was saying like what the members do. I mean like bringing the food on Sundays, like a very good thing, and also like just staying like supporting us in whatever way that you can, and also like especially maybe if like you're at the university or like you graduated, it's just good to have like conversation with people who are like out there, because as a college students we were curious and we want to be aware of like what's the world out there like after you graduate. So like maybe staying behind, sharing your experiences would be something that I would definitely really appreciate. But all the efforts that I think you do right now are really like supporting us. And on the like the project, I really don't have like a concrete like project that I can say, but I was like living here and observing like the people coming downstairs like to study and stuff like that. Something just like come into my mind that like what can maybe the chapel do more like to make the people who come downstairs and don't like come to the chapel like to come upstairs and like attend Wednesday's like service. So like maybe when like the house fellows or like everyone who, or someone who like as students who like come to the chapel, just introducing yourself to someone who is like studying downstairs. Like maybe it happens that you study there a lot and you meet once or twice, just introducing yourself and maybe making kind of like a good conversation with them, that maybe next time you can invite them to like a Wednesday worship when they're like studying, they can take like a break to come up here and stuff. And maybe just structuring events that would try to bring the people who like study downstairs upstairs, because it's pretty much easier since they're already here to like just try to make a deliberate effort that they should be able to come upstairs and worship with us.
The thing I really like about what members can do is just getting involved in maybe things that like are student events. So whether they come to some of our like game nights or pumpkin carving, they're not just for the students, they're for the entire chapel community. So I think it's a good, like, it's supporting to see that these chapel members want to like work with you and that we're not two separate ministries, even going along with the international ministry. Like these are kind of distinct areas, but we all work together as a chapel. So maybe just getting involved in some more regions of the ministry, like, okay, I work for Triple Ladder Dinner, so I love it when people bring food, but it is nice, like if a chapel member wants to bring food to Triple Ladder Dinner, because that's a student activity, and it shows the students that the members do care and want to support you. And I don't really have any specific events, so yeah.
Yeah, I think echoing off of that, just getting involved in the student ministry aspect. I know when I was a house fellow, it was like the craziest thing for me to suddenly like meet all these chapel members that were involved with chapel during the day, but I was always at class, so I like never got to know them. And now being a part of the young professionals ministry more, getting to know these people too, but just having them all intersect, whether that be giving gifts of time and coming to Vespers on Wednesday nights, or helping out with Triple Dollar Dinner, or going to events, or hosting your own. Students love going off campus. I know my first year here, my sophomore year, someone hosted a like Reformation party, and we all like went to a chapel member's house and had a Reformation party, and it was like the greatest thing ever because we were like, we're off campus and like it was really great. And so like things like that. But if that's like not something you have to give, even just like being a part of like the student email group of like people that do send out the devotions, because you guys have really awesome perspectives to take too. So just finding where your gifts and talents lie and helping it merge into the student ministry, I would say.
I have a question about the Reformation party. When you guys went to the party, did you sit or did you stand and do no other? Combination. All right. Did that answer the question? Pretty much awesome. Yeah, some good thoughts and ideas shared along with that one. Any follow-ups off of anything that was just said, or? Awesome. All right, so a lighter one next for my next question. What is your favorite chapel memory? Or what's your favorite thing about the chapel? But if you have like a specific like memory type thing, something cool that happened here, or something that'll stay with you for a long time. Good times at 220 West Gilman, anybody?
For me, I think my favorite event was probably my first winter retreat I went on. Just as a freshman, I didn't know a lot of people, but all of a sudden you just get thrown with all these other believers, and it was so encouraging to, again, know that people cared for you and that you have a family here at the chapel. But specifically, we did a murder mystery that time, and it was just one of the funnest things I've ever done. And then we started doing murder mysteries at chapel. Like, I bet I did 4 or 5 with a group of like people of different ages. So there was freshmen, but there was also seniors or graduate students, and we all just got together and did these fun parties. So it was a fun social event and just able to meet new people.
I think my favorite memory is finals. In Christmas time, which seems like kind of backwards because no one actually enjoys finals, but chapel during finals season is like endless food, endless coffee. Everyone basically just hangs out there all the time. And at least for me, my like 2 Christmases ago, we just did lots of like, we had decks of cards on our table, and we'd go between like playing cribbage and like studying, and everyone being like, this is the worst thing ever, but we're all in this together. And it's just a really fun time at chapel, I feel, because you get to hang out with your friends so much, even though you're all kind of hating your life at the same time, but you're doing it together, so it's okay. So I would say like finals season at chapel is always my favorite.
Yeah, I think for me it was like the winter retreat. This year it was like my first winter retreat, and it was like the first time where like I met a lot of people who come to chapel together, especially like students, and it's just a nice environment because everyone is there like to just get away from their like school life and just try to enjoy like together as students at one time. So like when you have such people in such a mood, it's always nice because everyone is looking forward to doing something that they can enjoy. And I kind of felt like the environment was really good, and it was just a good getaway from like all the school stress and that kind of stuff. So I think that was my favorite so far. Yeah.
I love the things that they've talked about, the winter retreat and all that other good stuff, but also I'm a fairly social guy. I like talking with people. So on Wednesday nights, the social hour that students have before and after the Wednesday night service, before I always tell myself I'm going to do homework, but it never actually happens because there's too many people to talk to here. So those are always good at enjoy connecting with people who aren't in my dorm or aren't in my classes and have a lot more of that commonality with me. Also, I really enjoy music and stuff like that. I've played piano almost my whole life in Oregon and stuff like that. So as soon as I got here, the second weekend here, Rich already had me playing with a big orchestra that was here, or combined of all the members and students here. And I really enjoyed that, and I love continuing to be involved in the music ministry here.
Thanks again for all your great answers. A lot of good things, a lot of fun. Winter retreat, hanging around, food. All up my alley. So, yeah, so that about covers talked a little bit about how can we, the members, best serve you during our time here in Madison. A few good ideas kicked around for that. Specific projects or events, a few ideas, maybe integrating more with the people who come here to study in the activity center with that. I have one more question on my list, and it might be kind of a tie-in of what we kind of almost talked about, but are there any questions real quick? Yeah, Mary, and then Andy afterward.
Hi. Do you have any suggestions on how we can get the word out to other students about the chapel?
Any suggestions for how we can get the word out to other students about the chapel?
I would say that's kind of interesting in the fact that the word about chapel itself is something that's already pretty well known. I've run into plenty of people that don't go here as like worship, and they know about like the church with the free coffee and like the great place to study. I know tons of people that have done that. I actually ran into my boss at the UW, like was like, oh, when I was a student, I always studied at that place. So the word about chapel itself is already kind of known in my opinion, but at the same time, like getting them to go kind of like what was being said before, getting them to like come to church and come like upstairs and come up to the chapel is the bigger thing, which I don't have the answer for, but I would say that's like the bigger thing to try to figure out, is how to kind of get them to that next step of the ministry.
All right. So the chapel is easy to invite friends to for me. There's about 4 or 5, 6 or something like that of us who go to the chapel who are in my dorm. So we have those conversations from time to time with people about, what we believe and what our views are on this and stuff like that. I was just, brushing my teeth this morning, and there was a guy who's come with me before, said, hey, Matt, you want to come to chapel this morning? He said, no, sorry, I got a midterm tomorrow. I got to grind it out the whole day. I said, that's all right, but he's come before, and it's very easy to invite people to come with me here, even if it's not Sunday, because that's too formal for people. The Monday night dinners, there's a lot of people who are missing their mom's cooking, so to invite people for food is very easy. Also, the Wednesday nights, a lot more casual and laid back. I think a lot of college students who aren't used to going to church are very open to going to Wednesday night services as compared to Sunday morning services, where it feels very, the traditions, and I'm not used to the formal church setting and all that stuff. So as students, I think we need to encourage students to simply just invite their friends and just have those conversations, bring them to Wednesday night worship, bring them to get a meal. It's simple. It doesn't have to be, get them to come to every event that's ever going on at the chapel. That's not what we're looking for. But just to get them to start coming, small doses, I think is good.
I think there's a good potential of like getting students who are already WELS, and when they come to Madison to like continue coming to church. I went to a private high school, like FEL, and I know there's kids in my class who did not go to the chapel. So I think the outreach we do at the private high schools, but also doing church outreaches, just so people know about the chapel, and that yes, it's a church, but it's a great way to meet friends. So getting parents involved. So as members, that would also be like just telling your nephews or your grandchildren or your cousins that like there's this place at Madison, so if you're going there, just inviting them there.
Yeah, and I think as like you already said, the big way can be like a word of mouth, just telling friends, and especially like, for example, for me, when I was living in the dorms last year, I would always like dress up on Sunday, come here and stuff, and like people are curious, like, where do you always go like on Sundays and stuff? So I was like, oh, I go to like my church there and stuff, and actually some people are like, oh, maybe we should go together sometime and stuff. I was like, yeah, you can join me. So like just not hiding the fact that like you're coming here or like to go to church to Sunday or like stuff like that, and just making sure to like maybe explain the other part of like the chapel, that there's a student center, like you can study, you don't have to go to church, like there's the $triple dinner and stuff like that. I think it's a good way, but maybe we can do some outreach, like events also that could have like deliberate efforts to like at least make the chapel known to more people on campus, apart from just WELS people. And yeah, so as like other ministries do, like handing out flyers during like the first week of when the freshman comes, because that week is like when the freshmen are like looking to join something, and when, as long as you have free food, giving out free food during that week and handing out flyers, people actually do receive your flyers, and some of them read them because you gave them free pizza or something. But yeah, just something like that I think would be of some help. Yeah.
Something that was lightly touched on but never actually got discussed was the fact that, so I went to FEL as well with Danielle. She's a few years my senior. But Pastor Billets, and I can't remember who it was, but I feel like there was a student or two who also came and talked. Pastor Billets gave one of the chapels at FEL, but then he stuck around and he talked with, especially I think it was senior and junior classes that day, to encourage them to get to know the campus ministry where they're going to college. Synod-wide, I know the Synod is trying to push the college students that are going from high school to college to look at campus ministries, and I think the chapel here is a leader in that effort. But so if we can continue to, maybe it's not Pastor Bill's going to every WELS high school because he's a busy guy, he doesn't have that time. But if other members or other students who are able to dedicate time to go and talk with juniors and maybe seniors before it's too late, just to make them aware of what is where they are going to college. Because if you get them involved right away, if they know about it, well, then they don't have an excuse not to go. Yeah, I think that's something that we could make a more of an effort on.
Great thoughts. Thank you. Andy, you had a question?
Yeah. Integrating members with the student ministry, would it be weird if some of us went on the winter retreat with you guys?
So.
I mean, I think it's hard to answer that because I've never been on a retreat with like members, but there definitely is something special about having students there and just being with your fellow students, just the age gap, but also your perspective on life. And everyone's so happy to get away from campus and get away from homework. And if that wasn't, if you were already working, you might not have that same feeling and appeal. But I think it would be nice to get different perspectives and different opinions. So I don't think it'd be opposed to it, but.
We have before. I mean, in the last couple of years, I don't think we've visited many. I've just got busy for a long time. My son and I, he never went to a retreat while he was a student, but until he got married, he'd come back every year, and there was 6 or 7 kind of faithful retreat goers that were members.
So the question was kind of posed as to like whether it would be, different or weird for, like members to jump into like, for example, the winter retreat, like a student type event like that. And what I'm getting is kind of like there's a good place for like sorts of events and things that where it'd be good to integrate, members and chapel students, but then also, just the things for like, like student retreats, student things. There's just kind of like a balance, and for us to kind of work together and find that medium, like what's a good student event, what's a good like us event type of thing, kind of the vibe. Sweet. Just one more question, and I think we might have already kind of touched on it, so if there's nothing, that's fine, but what's something you as a student would want a chapel member to know about you? And as I mentioned earlier, we might have kind of touched on it, but if you have any new thoughts to that, what's something that you as a student or you as, Lucas, Danielle, Lusayo, Hannah would want a chapel member to know about you?
Yeah, I think about me is just that I'm a social person, and I like interacting with people and hearing different perspective of people and like their experiences and stuff, because mostly me, because I'm an international student and I'm not from here, it's always interesting to hear different perspective of people from like different areas, especially here in Madison, because we have people from all over Wisconsin, all over the US, and in different parts of the world also. So like, for me, I'm just always interested to hear more about like the background where people grew up, like how it's different from Madison, or like how people behave in other parts of Wisconsin and how other parts, because that's the main reason I came to the US anyway, to like learn something different from my own culture and experience something that I wouldn't have experienced if I was still back home. So just approach me. If I don't approach you first, then you can ask me all about any question. If you want to know something about Malawi, African general, or something that I know about, I'll be very happy to like discuss with you about that. And yeah, any other thing that you would like to ask me, or like my experiences being a house fellow, I would be very happy to discuss about that. And yeah, just if you just want like a casual talk and stuff like that, I think, yeah, that's
I guess I could say, please don't feel like you can't approach us as college students. Please do try and get to know us. I know that not every college student likes talking to adults and stuff like that, but there's a decent amount of us who do enjoy just talking with anybody, no matter what age they are. So know that we do like having those conversations, as Lusayo was saying. So don't feel afraid to approach us and just talk with us about whatever, whether it's classes, school, life in general. It's all good.
I just want to say thank you. I can't list all the blessings that the chapel has provided for me during my time at college, and I'm really appreciative for all the work the members put into making the campus ministry.
No, that's okay. No, that's okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah, we're doing good stuff.
I think most of you went to Christian high schools. So do you feel you were prepared or were made aware of how you'd be challenged, how your faith would be challenged when you got to college?
I guess during time at college, I've never been formally like attacked for my faith or ever like been questioned, but I'm definitely in the minority. And I think coming from FEL, I was not necessarily prepared for knowing what it's like. You know, we talked about doing outreach and God's Great Exchange and things, but you never really get like a true sense of what it's like, because you just can't. If you're always surrounded by believers, it's hard to know what it's like, well, when you're not surrounded by believers. So.
Yeah, also being from FEL, where 99.9% of the teachers went to MLC or WLC or some other Lutheran college, they didn't go to a big public university, so they never had the experiences that we're experiencing now, so it's hard for them to always tell us, this is what you're going to experience, because they've never experienced themselves. There's one teacher, the chemistry teacher, Ben Stern, who I'm sure a number of you remember. He was great influence for all of us who went to Madison. He was always making sure we knew about the chapel, but he was always a guy who could also tell us about the real world, so to speak, because he went here, he knew what it's like, he knew the challenges we would face. So I probably learned a lot more from him than I did from a lot of the others, pastors and teachers at FEL, just because he did have that experience. So I wish that more of our high schools would have more people with that real world experience, so that, you know, what I was told by, you know, the people who went to MLC was not what I actually found here, just because, well, they didn't go to Madison or, you know, a university like that. So
I went to Manitowoc Lutheran for high school, and then I was at MLC for 1 year, as I said previously. And I think that I was prepared in some ways, and there's also just an element of realness that comes from having to put yourself in that actual situation of actually having someone ask you, like, what do you believe? Like, I don't understand. Like, let me, like, having to try to explain your beliefs compared to, like, just, like, reviewing and going through it. And that's not something that a Christian school can necessarily prepare you for, and the fact that until you have that person that genuinely has the curiosity and questions and like genuinely doesn't understand. There's just a sense of realness that comes from that. So I think in a lot of ways, my Christian education did prepare me in the fact that I could be like, okay, this is like what I know I've been taught. This is what I know the Bible says. But then there's another sense of having to put yourself in the position to find it on your own accord and like go through it. I know at MLC there was one professor in our like biblical history and literature class that let us use our Bibles on all of our tests because he said when you are being faced with a question from someone, you're gonna have your Bible and you're gonna like need to figure out where in the Bible what they're asking you about is gonna be found. So I think yes and no, but only no in the sense that until you're in the position and in that place, there's not really going to be something that can really firmly prepare you, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Kathy.
Over the years, people have spoken about the idea that maybe college students would love to have mentors in their field of study from chapel membership or even the greater Madison area, the people that support our campus ministry and are out in the work field. And we've done some of it very informally, like nursing students have been connected with Peggy Zimdars, and John Zimdars has talked to some finance students, and here and there we've connected with other people, but we've never really been able to pull off a formal thing. Do you think that it would be valuable, and what would that look like for you if it would be valuable?
So a possible like mentoring type system here at the chapel.
This is something that Kim and I actually talked about a lot last year when I was a house fellow. I think it'd be a super awesome resource, and we could start even just at the student level of like, why don't we connect students that are struggling through a class with someone that's already taken the class that's studying at chapel, and like finding those connections, and then taking it farther of, we have all these awesome networks of people that are doing different things in their different respected careers, and it's such an awesome opportunity to be able to like connect someone that's like trying to get into like a field of financial advising or something like that, in my case, with someone that maybe already has started in that, and like what are roadblocks they had, what are things that they would support, especially people that went to Madison, that could be like, oh, these are classes that are really hard, but I found them really helpful, or things like that. So I guess in terms of like ways to implement that, there's just like a bunch of different avenues that could be taken based off of just what works best for our ministry. But I think it'd be an awesome resource, both at just the student level and at the like chapel community as a whole. It'd be a cool way to connect them all together.
Yeah, and I think like as students, we're always like curious of what it's like to graduate with like your major and like what's out there for you, and just having that someone to like tell you and like maybe to guide you through the steps. Because for me, it's when I see like a mentor, it's someone who would try to help me maybe to avoid some of the mistakes they did, or like also after going in the world out there, like seeing what's really relevant. So like trying to guide you through some of those things, because most of the times as college students are always confused, like what's important and what's not important and stuff like that. So like just having that person who has gone through the same process as you, guiding you through, I think it can also be very important. And the other part might be like in a way of like connections, like if a mentor is like out there already in the field, they might know someone who is like having the same experience as you, or who like according to your goals or like your ideas might connect you to someone that might help you in the future. So I definitely think that would be like a very good development, and especially when it's like a formal thing, it's always good because sometime when you sign up for it, you feel obligated to do it. And I think that's a good thing for college students because we're always pushing things that we are not obligated to do by prioritizing some things that, we put us. So like if it's an informal thing, students might just give excuses, but if you really signed up for it, it's like formally, it's good that you have that commitment and you can adhere to it. So yeah, I think that would be a great thing.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that I was thinking about this morning, but I wasn't quite sure the best way to phrase it, and I didn't have enough things to talk about to bring it up. But I think it's great that, it's potentially that we connect in with people who are in the same career field or same graduate major, but maybe it doesn't even have to be that because there might just be personality types that don't blend at that point, but you have the same major kind of thing. But maybe there's just some other connection that people have, whether it's an activity, if they both love golfing, okay, go golf together some Saturday morning and just talk, converse, or if you like sailing, go do that, or whatever the activity is, or maybe it is your major, maybe it's your field, maybe it's a hobby, some way that we could get the students to connect with, the chapel members. And I know that we can't get 100% of students who would enjoy this, but I think there is a large majority of students who would enjoy something like this.
Thank you. Good question. A lot of good ideas kicked around today. A cool program that might see the light of day in the near future. So, first off, can we give a round of applause to our panel today? Thank them for taking some time out. This little get together this morning was kind of the brainchild of our Next Steps group. So, like the life group initiative we had first semester, the I Can Only Imagine movie, these are just kind of some ideas Next Steps has to kind of celebrate the ministry we have here at the chapel. Keep coming up with some new ideas, sprinkle them in every now and then to build some camaraderie between students, members, get all together as one big chapel family. So if you have any more further, questions or thoughts for Lucas, Danielle, Lusayo, or Hannah, feel free to say hi to them, wish them well going forward and all that. But thank you all. Why don't we close today with a quick prayer? Lord, thank you for blessing us with this ministry here in Madison, for giving us plenty of students who come into our doors, who make use of our services and facilities. Thank you for giving us all these students, and thank you also for the members who so kindly and generously see to it that our work and efforts here get supported. Please continue to bless all of us, Lord, as we strive to best serve and to make your name known here on campus in Madison. Be with all the efforts we think of and plan, and be with all these students and members as we go forward today. In your name we pray, dear Lord. Amen. All right, thank you again for coming. We really appreciate it.